Specialized say their new S-Works Epic is the fastest, smartest race bike they've ever made. And having pinned it round purpose-built racetrack here in Matanzas, Chile, I'd be inclined to agree. But just what's so smart about it that makes it so fast? So let's start with the heart of the bike, the frame. And this S-Works is genuinely something special. Not only is it the only bike in the Epic range that's made with 12M carbon fiber rather than 11M, so it's a little bit lighter that way, but you've got carbon fiber linkage there. You've also got titanium hardware in as many places as possible on the bike. And while it's a flex stay bike rather than having a rear FSR pivot, it follows that classic Specialized layout with the rocker link going onto the seat tube there, and then this Sidlux Ultimate Shock being driven by this little yoke here. But in terms of detailing, they've really gone deep on the weight saving. If you look at this section here, now it's no longer a separate piece that's bonded on. That's actually molded into the frame while the rest of the main frame is being created. So you've got continuous fiber flow through on that, and then it's post machined afterwards. And that saves 24 grams of weight on the frame. And then you've got this much larger down tube, including, for the first time ever, on their XC bikes, SWAT internal storage. So, as you can see, as I open it there, try not to knock the bike over, not only have you got plenty of room inside, you can see there you've got the fully trunked internal cable routing, but also you get a little tool purse, which drops all the way down into there to take your tubes and your tools. But you've also got a clip on the underside for a CO2 cartridge and a Dynaplug fitment there as well. So you've got everything you need for racing right there in the down tube, clean, sealed, out of the way. And the way they've done it is pretty clever. They haven't used a massive gusset or reinforcing on the inside. And this door only adds about 63 grams over the standard frame set. So you're getting a lot of extra practicality there without a lot of extra weight. And there's some other really nice detailing on the frame as well. You've got removable rubber armor on the underside there. You've got a really nice detailing on the head of the main pivot there. And a little rubber grommet in the back there, stopping rocks and other stuff getting down behind the swing arm and chewing into the back of that kinked seat stay there. And then these long, slender seat stays allowing the flex that gives this, the Epic, the same 120mm travel as the Epic Evos always has, and which it retains in the next variation. And while the S-Works comes with flight attendant, conventional bikes and the frame sets will come with 3-position RockShox Sidlux systems, which I've already covered in a separate video, so I'll put a link to that in the video now. If we go back down to the BB, that main pivot and its relationship with the rest of the bike has actually given it more anti-squat than the previous Epic and more anti-squat than the Epic World Cup, which is really significant in terms of how the bike responds under power. And it's literally a real positive in terms of how kind of efficient and fast this bike feels when you jam the power down. There's no sogginess when it comes off the nose as the compression releases on the electronic shock. You know, you've just got that immediate drive and kind of positive pickup, which I think is really important from a race bike, and something I didn't like on the previous Epic. I didn't like on the previous Epic, where you go through the compression and it would just kind of drop into this kind of mushy mid-stroke. There was nothing like the kind of topped out compression feel, and it's the same gripe I had with the World Cup. So it's great to know the Specialized have actually increased the anti-squat on this model, and it feels fantastic on the trail. If you haven't already watched my live ride review on this bike, this thing is just naturally super fast. Not just under power, but also on the descents and through the turns. And that's because they've done some pretty radical stuff with the geometry on this bike too. So they've relaxed the head tube angle by half a degree or pretty much a full degree, depending on where you have that high-low chip on the back of the shock. So that's either giving you 65.9 or 66.4 degree head angle, but they've also significantly lengthened the reach on the top tube, so it's 480 or 475 mil. That's properly stretched out for an XC bike. And then you've got 76.5 effective seat angle there. You can really feel that when you're carving the bike, because although the top tube's actually slimmer, that's because this much bigger down tube gives them a load of strength in reserve and some real head to tail stiffness that you can genuinely feel in every turn, in how well this bike not only like rips around corners, but we've been doing all sorts of things like wall rides, some big sends, some proper slappers through rock gardens, and this thing has not flinched at all. I mean, part of that is due to the fact you're now running a 120mm SID Ultimate with the 35mm legs up front, and again 120mm travel there, but it's a much stiffer, more accurate fork. And if you look closely at the hubs, you can see that Specialized have fitted the oversized torque cap adapters that give them extra stiffness right down at the connection between the fork and the wheel as well. So the bike is slacker, longer, stiffer and lower, which gives us a serious amount of confidence, while also being lighter, because this frame is 76 grams lighter than the previous Epic, and Complete bikes, even with all this electronic on here, are lighter than the previous Epic with that brass mass suspension system. And that's despite some, practical rather than ultralight spec choices. So you have got these new Roval Control SL wheels on here, which, 1,320 gram wheels. I've reviewed these separately. One of my favorite cross-country wheel sets. 24 spokes, but seriously stiff. And with that tire-preserving flat top 4mm rim profile on there, a really, really good wheel set. Proven at the highest level, not just by the Specialized race guys, but my mate Amy's raced these at World Cup marathon level and absolutely loved them. Then you've actually got fast track control tires on the front. So not only is that the slightly heavier carcass, but it also gives you a T7 compound. So that's the kind of medium sticky compound from Specialized. And then going to the back, you've got a Renegade, sort of more of a slick racing tire. And that isn't a T5 faster rolling compound, but again, control carcass on the Superlight S-Works. And it's great to see Specialized have recognized this is a proper racer's bike and gone with full double-sided power meter. This is the XXSL armed version from Quarq, the SRAM subsidiary. Really, really reliable, accurate power meter. And it's an 168mm narrow Q factor version as well. So that's something that genuine racers or anyone training with power, just wanting to get fit, will absolutely love on this bike. And then at the back, you've got XXSL Superlight rear mech with a full carbon cage, that seemingly indestructible direct mount linkage. Everybody's been jumping up and down, and I've been slapping off rocks on a regular basis with no injuries or ill effects. And then Superlight cassette on there, and that beautiful flat top chain as well. Nice to see a bike actually dusty rather than just filthy. That's rare for my videos, but then I don't normally ride in the South America. And finally, you've got a Reverb Axis post. Definitely not the lightest spec choice they could have made, but from a racer point of view, not only does it give you excellent function and really fast tunable action and matching pods on both sides of the bars, but it also means if you're in a race or riding situation where you don't want to use a dropper post, you can just slide a rigid post in there without having to worry about disconnecting cables or hoses or anything like that. It's a really easy switch. So again, from a racer's perspective, I think fitting that wireless post is actually a really smart move, even if it means you have to suck up some extra grams. And then finally at the front, there is something that is not wasting your weight. That Roval Control SL, really good looking gull-wing one-piece handlebar and stem there, with the accessory mount on the top, and then SRAM level ultimate brakes in the lightest but most powerful 4-pot caliper spec. And before you ask what all this Exotica costs, I don't actually know at the moment. I think we can expect this to be absolutely eye-wateringly expensive, but the same frame set, albeit in 11M carbon with an alloy linkage, is available will be available right down the price range to the comp level. So while I am going to cover that flight attendant suspension off in a separate video on this XC version, at least I've already done it with the Enduro version, well, let's just have a quick talk about what that's doing on here. So you can see, obviously, it's on the fork top there with the standard Axis battery, and then you've got manual controls on the top there. So actually that little signal means it's actually looking for its power meter at the moment. And then you can see it goes straight to open there. And that was a little flick on there that actually showed me I was in a very low power mode. So you've got an instant glance. I mean, it takes a little while to learn what all the lights mean, even though they're, you know, relatively well signposted. That shows you that this system not only picks up power, but it also lets you know what suspension mode you're in going along. And it's not just a front and rear synchronized setup. It can open the fork while keeping the rear shock active, or while keeping the rear shock locked, or vice versa. And you can actually override the algorithm that it automatically sets up for you. And it's genuinely learning all the time. We rode it this morning and then let it sit over lunchtime, and the bike was significantly different in feel when we rode it in the afternoon. So basically what it's doing is, on the front and the rear, these wireless sensors are toggling between an open mode, what they call a magic middle mode on the Specialized shock, and a pedal mode. A magic middle mode is kind of a pedal mode in the center with more compression damping, and then a fully locked sprint mode. And it does that not just by impact sensing from the fork, but also taking information from the crank. And although RockShox haven't confirmed this, I'm pretty sure it's taking in a lot more information in terms of bike position, in terms of how hard it can feel you, compressing the fork, in terms of sprinting. The way it seems to be sentient is a lot smarter than the initial flight attendant that I tested on the Trek / Enduro bike. It just seems to be reading me better as a rider and delivering more accurate results. Because when you're we did a couple of flat out laps today just to reinforce at that moment when you're just blowing out of your absolute ass, and the last thing you want to think about is what your suspension is doing. This system is really, really not only just efficient, but also this system is just automatically efficient at putting the bike in the optimum mode for whatever part of the track you're on at the moment. Plus, you've also got the option to tune it through these buttons here, plus and minus, and bias it either -2 or +2, so it's more or less likely to go into closed modes for that firmer sprinting feel. And not only does it go into closed modes faster, but it also increases the compression force needed to overcome the suspension. Plus, you can toggle all that not just through the fork top, you can do it through your Axis app, and you can do it through the left-hand pod as well. So there's just loads of ways that you can interact with the system, or you can just let it completely get on with the job in hand itself, which I think. So it's not just, so I have to say, it's just seriously impressive system. Been very, very impressed. And I have to say, I've been very, very impressed with the way it's ridden today. Not only just like hammering through rock gardens, straight off drops and wall rides, but the transition from like G'ing out in a swooping turn into punching up a super steep climb on the other side where you want that lockout. Pretty much perfectly judged by the end of the day. Really, really impressive. And as I say, this bike, despite what looked like quite bulky kind of electronic additions, is actually lighter as a complete bike than the current Epic. Despite having more travel, despite being longer, despite being stiffer, despite having a burlier spec, this is still a lighter bike. So just on a physical basis, it's faster in terms of less weight to drag uphill. And in terms of the amount of control, it is definitely far, far faster. You can push this thing properly trail bike hard. Oh, and I even forgot about the other bit of SRAM smarts. You've got Tyre Whiz pressure indicators on the wheels there, which I have to say, I find way more valuable than I expected. I've been running on the set of the Zipp wheels, and I really, really like them. It's great just to know that your pressure is in the right band, and you're not going to get any nasty pneumatic surprises when you hit the trails. You can just look down and see whether you've got a green light or a red light, and you know you're good to go. The only obvious downside is that while the weight penalty isn't as much as you might think, you are looking at a whole lot more batteries to remember to recharge. So not only you've got the batteries in the shifters, you've got the fork battery, you've got the shock battery, you've got the seat post battery, you've got the rear mag battery. That is a lot of little bits of lithium-ion that you need to make sure are topped up before you hit the trail or the track. But again, on a plus note, at least with this system, unlike the Fox, if one of the battery fails, it automatically defaults to open rather than closed. So you will get maximum control, maximum smoothness, rather than a locked out buckaroo bike if you have a battery issue. So there you go. Well, that's my quick tech check through on this undoubtedly ultra exotic cross-country racing future bike. I actually meant to say super bike there, but I think future bike works really, really well. This is genuinely state of the art. I do expect a lot of other manufacturers to come out with a flight attendant bike. I know certainly Santa Cruz are likely to bring one out, but as my first experience riding flight attendant on an X6C bike, that has been seriously impressive. But in terms of the Epic underneath it, that bike, not only is it a brilliant showcase of this new suspension system, it's a absolutely brilliant bike in its own respect. Better geometry, stiffer, more practical, practical storage inside it now, a more positive pedaling experience, whatever shock you're using on it. Yeah, it's just, they've just nailed the upgrades in terms of race and trail use all the way through, and more travel as well. So you can hit stuff harder with more control in pretty much every way, from frame to geometry to suspension. I'm really, really impressed with this bike, and it definitely resets my benchmark on what cross-country bikes are capable of coming into 2024. So, massive thanks to Specialized for flying us out to the amazing beach resort of Manzanzas, which has surfing, windsurfing, 2 separate bike parks. So if you fancy a long flight to Chile and you like outdoor sports, this is a fantastic place. A massive thanks to the guys from the bike park here for not only hosting us, but also building a specific trail funded by a Specialized soil searching program just for this launch. So huge thanks to those guys. Massive thanks to my usual channel sponsors, and also my Patreon subscribers who pledge on a monthly basis, and that makes a massive difference, the support from those guys, how much time I can spend talking to you on a GoPro alongside my regular writing work. Because there'll be a written review on this bike on Bike Perfect, which should be up about the same time as this video launches. But I understand if you can't subscribe on Patreon, but if you could subscribe on YouTube, that costs nothing, but it means a great deal to me in terms of YouTube sharing the channel. So, and if you click for notifications, you'll get the live ride video of this bike. You'll get all the content on the Epic Evo as well, which comes up a peg again in capability while still being a seriously light and fast bike. I'm riding that one tomorrow. Really looking forward to that. And also, make sure you give this a thumbs up, like, and tell your mates. Because if you've enjoyed watching me talking about the tech on this bike, then hopefully your friends will as well. And your recommendation is the best thing the channel can get. But for now, I've been Guy Kesterman on Guy Kes TV, doing a tech talk around on this seriously state-of-the-art, blisteringly quick, Specialized Epic S-Works 2024.